Good evening. Hi. Welcome to the Jewish Museum. My name is Kelly Taxter, Assistant Curator at the museum, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Gertrude and David Fogelson Lecture, Dialogue and Discourse, Isaac Mizrahi and Wendy Goodman. I've been an admirer of Isaac's work for a very long time, and over the last few years, I've had the great privilege of working with him, as well as guest curator Chi Perlman on the exhibition Isaac Mizrahi and Unruly History, currently on view in our second floor galleries. Please join us again on Tuesday, May 24th, when Isaac will be back for a conversation with choreographer Mark Morris. For full details about all of our upcoming public programs, please visit our website to sign up for our e-news. So now, to introduce our speakers. Isaac Mizrahi was born in Brooklyn. He attended the yeshiva of Flatbush, went on to New York City's High School for the Performing Arts, and then Parsons School of Design. In 1986, he debuted his clothing line, Isaac Mizrahi, New York, at Bergdorf Goodman, when he was just 25 years old. 3 years later, he received the Perry Ellis Award for Emerging Talent and was named Women's Wear Designer of the Year by the CFDA, which he won again in 1991. In 2003, he was the first fashion designer to launch a line of well-designed, affordable clothes for Target. Unzipped, an insightful and hilarious documentary about the making of his fall 1994 collection, earned Mizrahi and the director Douglas Keeve the 1995 Audience Award at the Sundance Film Festival. Mizrahi is as prolific in the world of performance as he is in fashion. He's designed costumes and sets for Mark Morris and Twyla Tharp, won a 2002 Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Costume Design, directed and narrated Peter and the Wolf at the Guggenheim, directed and designed The Magic Flute and A Little Night Music for the Opera Theater of St. Louis, and worked the red carpet at the Oscars and Golden Globe Awards. Today he stars in Isaac Mizrahi Live on the QVC network, appears as a judge on Project Runway All-Stars, and is currently at work on a television series and a memoir. Wendy Goodman is New York Magazine's design editor, a position she's held since 2007. From 1997 to 2007, she was the magazine's interior design editor and fashion editor under editor-in-chief Ed Cosner. As design editor, Goodman is responsible for New York's twice-annual design issues and regular Great Room features. She also oversees the standalone home design magazine New York Design Hunting and produces the weekly online feature Design Hunting. Before New York Magazine, Goodman was the style director at Harper's Bazaar, producing and writing style, interior design, and architecture stories. Prior to her work at Bazaar, she covered the world of style and fashion for House & Garden, tracking fashion designers and artists at home and abroad. Goodman is the co-author with Hutton Wilkinson of Tony Duquette, published in 2007 by Abrams. Her second book, The World of Gloria Vanderbilt, was published in 2010. So please take a moment to quiet your cell phones and join me in welcoming Isaac Mizrahi and Wendy Goodman.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. It is a joy and honor to be here.
Hello.
Okay, now is it working? Okay. It's a joy and honor to be here with one of my dear friends who's also, can I just say, it's really weird to have a friend who is a icon and who is brilliant. It's really, I woke up this morning and I thought, okay, the day is here. We're going to be talking. I'm really freaked out because where do you start with Isaac? Where do you start? There's so much to talk about. So I'm going to tell you two very quick stories that will tell you a little bit about my introduction to Isaac and also how I knew who he was through this. The first story is I was a fashion editor at New York Magazine, 1988, and I went to Isaac's first fashion show. And the buzz had been that this was going to be an incredibly important show. We all knew it, we all felt it. It was that buzzy, buzzy time. Now, remember, pre-cell phones, all of this horror that we're in now with social media. Okay, horror. And so the word of mouth was literally picking up a phone or talking to a friend saying, I think there's going to be this genius who's Anyway, so go to the show. I literally found myself sitting next to your mother. Swear to God. And so tears are welling in my eyes because during the show, the one thing I knew I'm going to tell you, I followed Anna Wintour as the fashion editor at New York Magazine. And if you don't think that was a bit of a situation. So I thought, I'm just going to pretend I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to cover these shows. And so I'm sitting there, and I go, oh, my God, this guy is a genius. He's really, 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 something's happening here. I've never seen it before. There's a thing in the audience. We were all hysterical. And then I'm next to Isaac's mother. So I thought, okay, now what do I say? So I said, your son is a genius. And she said, I know. And I thought, okay, there's nothing more I can say. So I will tell you that I literally ran back to New York Magazine. It was then on 2nd Avenue, and said, and Jordan Shaps is here somewhere, he was the photo editor there, my dear friend, and I said, we have got to do a story now. We need pages, I've got to do it. It was still a weekly magazine, we were cutting and pasting those pages. No one knows what that means, but that's what we were doing. And I got the pages, and I remember I said, simply to Ed Kozner, who was then the editor-in-chief, I said, Ed, a star is born. Oh. And it was true, a star was born. Okay, so that is my first story. Isaac is going to get to talk. I'm not going to do this all night. But
I'm going to actually eat some of this cookie while you're talking.
But, so, segue to,
Good opportunity. Yeah, sorry, go
Are you
ahead.
really going to eat that?
Do you mind?
No, I love it. I love
so
that you're going
good.
to eat it.
Russian daughters. Go
I
on.
can't
Do you
believe
mind?
you're, no. I want to eat mine, but I can't, I'm talking too much.
When I talk, you
Okay. So, segue, I did the story, I was right, okay, I called it, and I was the first one. I'm just going to say it. I was the first one. I was, okay? And I wanted to go and bring that issue for you tonight, and I just didn't have time. But, segue, now I'm at House and Garden. And the story that we're doing is entertaining at home. And I said, Isaac Mizrahi, can you imagine if we could get him in his London Terrace apartment? Like, what does he do? What kind of china does? So, do you remember this?
I do. Was that House and Garden?
Myra was there. Mm-hmm. Elizabeth Saltzman was there. So I come to do the shoot, and it's like he's having a party, and it's so glamorous and so divine.
Well, having a party that was staged for you.
Well, okay, but yeah, a little. But you really, but the interesting thing was, we did the shoot, we staged the party, it was great. But then I looked over, and Isaac had this fantastic apartment in London Terrace with the open kitchen, little kitchen wall, and I noticed a table set right by the kitchen. And the table was set for 3 people. And I said, Isaac, you're really having a dinner tonight. Who's coming for dinner? And Isaac said to me, he said, I'm just cooking a little thing for Dick and Twyla. I said, excuse me? Dick is Richard Avedon and Twyla Thorpe, okay? That was your little dinner party. He had a tartan tablecloth. It was the chicest thing. And I thought, okay, this tells me everything I need to know about Isaac. I wouldn't have invited Twyla and Dick to my house for all the money in China. And Isaac, and I realized, not only is he brilliant, funny, divine, everybody loves him, he's confident. He knows who he is. And he's invited Dick and Twyla for dinner. It almost killed me. So those are my 2 stories about Isaac. So, on that note, I will say to you, the other thing I observed, you're never going to get to talk. You're cooking.
No, I just had to because it was sitting there. It's like a gun on stage. It has to go off if it's on stage.
Now you made me lose my train of
Oh,
thought.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Dick Twyla,
Dick Twyla.
tablecloths.
Okay. Okay. The thing that after I saw Unzipped again, I hope you all saw it at the Film Forum. It was just it's beyond genius. And I thought the thing about a true artist is courage, aside from everything else. But the opening scene of the film, and then you segue to the final moments of that film were so moving and so beautiful. The whole film is so beautiful. But I think you get this sense in that film of the pressure and how much is resting on your artistic decisions, which is really all you have doing a job that involves fashion at that time, because you're doing so many different jobs now. But I'd love you to take us through, after you got out of Parsons, and you start working for Perry Ellis.
Yeah.
That was a really glamorous time at Perry's, right?
It was glamorous
I mean,
time,
he was glamorous, his clientele. I saw Tina Chow there. I saw Anna
Chow.
Wintour sitting in a front row seat, and she opened her bag, and she took out a bread loaf and started talking to it. And I thought, what is she doing? It was the first cell phone in the world. But that, Perry Ellis really was. So I want you to, can you give us some behind the scenes of your beginnings in a professional life? Was it different from what you thought? Was it better than what you thought?
It was different than what I thought it would be. And you know, like, I can't tell you what has motivated me, because when I was a junior in Parsons, I was offered 2 jobs. One was at the New York Shakespeare Festival doing costumes in that fantastic space which is not there anymore.
Right.
It was this room, and I tell you, it was like, you know, it had double than this, the height of the ceilings, and it was just this big space with like sewing machines, and the costumes were stored in the fly space of the room, right? So you look up and you see like 18th century dresses and suits of armor and bird costumes and all these costumes, right? So I was offered that job, and then I got the job offer at Perry Ellis. And I remember the fork in the road being so specific at that time, you know? And I took the job at Perry Ellis, and I didn't even like his clothes. I didn't even think about Perry Ellis. You know, I mean, before I took the job, I'll say, right? I mean, I sort of had my sights set on getting a job at Jeffrey Bean, because I think everybody my age really wanted to work for Jeffrey Bean, because he was, I don't think his work has been matched. Has there been a designer in the world who has done what he has? I mean, has there been one designer?
Not, he had a particular,
The purity
like
of
his
it,
own thing.
yeah. I mean, I remember like being in school and like he abolished zippers. Like zippers were not in the world anymore, right? And so we thought, okay, no more zippers, that's it. No, you can't use any more, it has to close in another way, or buttons or something, but no zippers. You know, there were ways that you got in and out of his clothes, and just the whole way that he did things. And so I was sort of holding out for that. And I got the job at Perry Ellis, and I thought, I'll take this job, right? I thought I would be in the fashion business, I kind of was going away from being in the theater world. Right. So I took that job, and within minutes, of course. You know, it's like when I got my dog, well, our friend Kitty sort of introduced me to my dog. After looking for a year for a dog, she said, oh, you know, come to this cocktail party, because I think the cutest dogs in the world are going to be there. And so, you know, it's all the cutest dogs in New York will be there. So I said, okay, so I got there early, and I thought she was going to bring out 10 dogs. And she said, oh, your dog is here. And it was, I was like, you're right. Harry came out, and he was really aloof, and he was really, you know, I could take it or leave it. And I was like, that is my dog, obviously, right? But within seconds of getting him home, he was the neediest, darlingest, most adorable. But at first, we met, and he felt aloof. So I thought, oh, this is perfect. If he doesn't care, I don't care, and I'll just have him around. We'll see where it goes. That was kind of the experience at Perry Ellis. I got there, and I was like, yeah, Perry Ellis. And then within seconds, I was like, this is the greatest place in the world. Right. And, you know, it was so different from school, to answer your question. I mean, you learn a lot in school, I think, especially Parsons at that time. I can't vouch for it now, which means it probably sucks, but in that day, it was like med school for designers. It was insane. We were up most of every single weekday, and weekends being driven mad, pulling grain threads out of muslin. I mean, really basic, ridiculous tasks that we had to fulfill. Making French linings, making our first tailored blazer. I mean, it drove us crazy. Really, we learned. I knew how to sew a lot, but I learned a lot, right? And the curriculum was just mad. But then you get on the job, and you realize that none of that applies. None of it.
None of it applies.
And it's a
none of it?
completely different world, like, going to Interstoff, which is where we went. This was this fabric fair in Germany, which you get off the plane, whisked right to thousands of booths that you walk through and see thousands of hideous fabrics, and find one nice fabric,
Right.
And so that was like this lesson, just that alone, just the fashion shows alone, because that was way before, sort of Keeble Cavaco and Duca kind of waltzed in and stand aside.
Right.
It's like, stand aside, I'm the designer. No, you just stand over there and they run the show.
Right.
This was before that, right?
Right.
And so like just organizing a fashion show, just putting accessories in a bag and hanging it over a dress, right? And in those days, Perry Ellis did like his accessories, okay? It was like a pair of tights, a pair of socks, another pair of socks, a pair of paddock boots that came up to here, so you only saw that much of the first sock and that much of the second sock. But when the dress, which was down to here, was over her like that, so it was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then a sweater, a jacket, a coat, a belt, a hat, a hair bob. I mean, it was so ridiculous. And I remember I was like the stylist who went on the shootings with Erica Lennard,
Right.
who was a genius and who I learned a great deal from.
Yep.
Erica Lennard taught me a lot.
Yeah.
She really did. But stylist, that meant I was responsible to get all those fucking things to Shelter Island
Oh, I know.
in a one-engine plane with like a model who was barfing because she was so high, So it was me and the model and a mass of and then if you forget the Barry Kieselstein cord belt, they can't shoot and there's no way to get, so I wouldn't, so that was another reason I didn't sleep,
Okay, so in those moments, did you say to yourself, and I'm going to become a fashion designer?
Well, I mean, the good thing about working at Perry Ellis was that everybody did everything, yes, I was the schlepper on the sittings called the stylist, but I was basically the schlepper, okay? And, but also, I got to sit in on these meetings with Perry Ellis and Jed and Patricia, and it was fabulous because I'd sit there like so scared, and then I'd say, what about a crew neck? And everybody would go, that's it, a crew neck, so, and then the cleaning lady would walk by, I go, not a crew neck, So everybody was allowed their opinion, on every single subject. Also, it was a great thing because there was so much going on in this big room. It was just one big room. Perry Ellis didn't have his own office even. He sat on at his table while we were doing stuff on the other side of the room. He had an assistant called Peggy Lee, which we thought was hilarious, Peggy Lee. And we were doing something, and he was doing something, and then Laura Santisi was doing something else. She was doing sock designs, right? With swatches that were literally the size of lint, okay? And I remember going over and it was like that scene in Woody Allen when he sneezes and the cocaine goes everywhere. I did something, I went, oh, and I picked up the page and the swatches went that she'd been working on organizing the sock swatches. So there was socks and men's clothes and shearlings and shoes and all kinds of licenses going on. It was great. And then Tina Chow would walk in, so it was, yeah.
Yeah, the glamour.
The glamour.
Also, I think what you can't drive home enough is that back then, the fashion business was just that. It was a business based on a fashion designer's designs.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't
Yes.
a corporate takeover where, you have
Right.
to fill in 50,000 by tomorrow.
Right,
It
there
was
wasn't one stylist that you could work with in order to get everyone's attention. Today, unless you get this one stylist to come and do your show, no one will pay attention. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Well, some people will, but not really. You're not liable to get whoever it is attention.
No,
right?
it was about the work. It was about the work.
It was about the work, and also it was about the kind of grandeur, of and Veronica Webb said this. It was very funny because then later I went to work at Calvin Klein, and it was sort of the same kind of operation, except a completely different, almost minimalist take on things, And I learned a lot from him too. He's a really good tailor.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that in those, she said, darling, we were raised at Versailles, She once said that, and she's sort of right. I mean, we used to order fabric, it was crazy. I mean, you remember how people used to reshoot things? Because in the day, they couldn't change someone's eyebrow, so if they got the eyebrow wrong, reshoot, you know, I'm serious. And it was like, who was doing the makeup and and they just reassembled everybody. Grace Mirabella, reshoot. I mean, it was like a joke how much reshooting used to go on.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so it was like, and thousands of pairs of shoes were ordered for every collection, you know, which used to drive shoe licenses mad, right? You couldn't believe the budgets, right? I guess it was spending your money on that as opposed to, you know, hiring Keeble, Cavaco, and Duca to come in, or a stylist to something. I think you just spent your money on different things.
Well, the other thing that struck me so much watching Unzipped, and also just being in the fashion world back then, and going into the studios of Calvin Klein or Bill Blass or anybody, what always interested me was the coterie of the inner circle.
Yes, yes. And that grandeur, you know,
Yes.
that grandeur.
Yes.
The idea of John Fairchild coming in for something, or Carrie Donovan, our favorite person in the world, or you, or something, or like Polly Mellon, or just the lunches at Grand Oui, and the flowers was so beautiful. I mean, flowers is still really beautiful, but, you know, for me, I was 18, and I knew from flowers, but, you know, from flowers
But-
and then flowers.
But I also think, and also, you know, really watching anything about Diana Vreeland or reading about Diana Vreeland, like with Isaac, you know, people have a perception that this is a glamour business and that it's a, you know, it's a fun, frothy business. It is the most difficult business. And Diana Vreeland also really hammered home how seriously and how hard everybody worked. And when you watch Unzipped and you see your team is like, there's
Yeah.
so much tension around
You
a
know what else?
show.
If you see that book that Nick Waplington made, which is available in the lobby, exit through the gift shop, but if the thing is, when you look at that book, you get the focus. Like, there was nothing else in that room except those fittings. Everybody looking like this, like, right? And it was great. Also, in those days, I feel like there was such a separation between church and state, you know, like designers designed and salespeople sold, you know, and it was almost offensive for merchandising to come into the design room and have anything to say about anything, you know, which is not the case now. I don't think that's the case now.
No, I think
It's run the other way, right? It's
I
run
think
the
the
other
fashion
way.
industry, I mean, it's been ages since I've been to a fashion show. But
Me too.
I have no idea what goes on. But it's not a sort of direct relationship with the talent and the thing.
But like, I used to think of ways to not sell dresses. You know what I mean? Like, oh, who would ever want to wear that? Yeah, let's show that, you know? That's the way I used to think. I used to think like, oh, no, that's so remote. No one's going to get that, you know?
Well, that's another.
I mean, not exactly, because it was always motivated by something great. Not just to be contrary, but it was motivated by a gesture of some sort that was not seen. And you know, I remember like Ellen Saltzman, who was a really great fashion director, first at Saks and then at Bergdorf's for a long time, and her daughter was a really good friend of mine, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
But I remember Ellen coming in and going, darling, where are the parkas? You made up where the hell are all your parkas? I was like, that was last year. I'm not doing parkas again. You want parkas, go to Michael Kors or something. I don't know who's going to be doing them this year, but somebody not me, you know? And no, because that's how I thought in those days. And look where it got me. No, but you see, right? You see what I mean.
I do see what you mean, but I also think this whole aspect of sticking to your guns and being passionate about one's vision, this is what makes an artist. And I have to say that there are not many artists in many creative professions. There are wonderful branding people, there are wonderful who call themselves designers. They're not really designers, they're more stylists. Won't mention names, but it's true. And
I don't know. I mean, yes and no, because I think styling is a really important part of design. It always has been, you know? I mean, and so I don't mean to sound like ill about stylists, because they are great and they are important. But I know what you're talking about, the idea, because to me, like, they go, oh, it's a white cotton shirt. Oh, no, it is not a white cotton shirt. Darling, you know how much blood was spilt over that particular white cotton shirt? Because it's so different if you look at it really, if you look at it on the inside. But I don't think stylists tend to look at it that way. they look at it like, oh, it's the symbol of a white shirt. So somebody's got to do that, you know? And that's who does it. And they do it really well sometimes, you know? They do it really well. But if you ask them to actually make a white shirt, they like look at you like you're insane, you know?
Do you think that a designer who has not come up from really the bottom and learned all of the processes, is it a great disadvantage? I suppose now it's hard to say because there's so much technology that's involved.
Yeah, you know, Wendy, I don't know, because there are way more successful designers than me, so I can't answer that question. All I know is that I don't understand how people use technology to design things. I mean, except for cars or something, right? But I don't get how you can make a sketch on a computer. I don't get that. I told this story a little earlier this week at some Q&A about a rug I designed for my den, and I actually, you know, did a scaled sketch. I did a sketch with gouache, and I sat in my little paint room and I painted it, and I brought it to the person making the rug, and she was like, "What is that?" You know, she got scared. She didn't understand how to react to a sketch that was made by hand. Huh?
It was alive.
No. And she was like, never. I was like, no, darling, it's just this, relax, breathe. It's a sketch, you know? And she said, oh, well, I'm going to have to redo that on computer, right? Which didn't look nearly as much like the rug as my sketch. It was just crazy, and I promise that happened. You know, they give you these amazing, you know, woolen swatches, and you sit there, and it was just a stripe. I mean, I didn't need to, but it was really easy. You just do a scale sketch. But so I don't know how technology has like changed that much dress design, you know, like actual clothing design. And I can't, like sometimes, you know, I saw a very good tape. I didn't mean to see it, but I saw it, of Balenciaga. Someone new was at Balenciaga, and it looked good to me because it looked quite simple. And, you know, I know that designer has this kind of integrity about those clothes. You know, they looked very simple, and it was very stylish. It was styled, but I know he's on to something. Whoever that is, I can't pronounce his name. I'll never know it again, probably, but
I can't pronounce it either.
but you know what I'm talking about? It was a lot of plaid and like these kind of, it looked like that kind of, it looked beautiful. It looked really good and plain. And I know that that person invested a lot in the integrity of the design of those clothes.
When you actually, what was the epiphany where you went, I'm going to, because you were working at Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
Before you started your own business in '88,
Yeah.
what was the moment where you went, I can do this, I'm going to start my own label?
Well, he hired me, right? And I worked there for about a year, and it was really fun. And it was like this crazy thing, because I would put sketches up of, you know, like feather shrugs and things, which is not exactly up Calvin's alley. And it was like, it was sort of a joke, and I loved them. And he was like, he laughed. It was like joke, right? And occasionally he would like, oh, you know, let's try a lace bra attached to a lace dress. You know, like, let's try it. And it was really good because he would have his way with it, and he made it really simple, and it was a good relationship. Then suddenly he hired this other person, and then he hired Grace Coddington. Remember that?
I do remember
and
that.
I loved Grace. We worked together about 6 months, right? And at some point, you know, we traveled together, we went to fabric places together. We really had fun, Grace and I. And I made her these chair covers, you know. I made her these linen, because I really can sew. She actually called and asked if I wanted them for the show, which I thought, that
sweet.
would be
That's-
funny.
yeah.
2 giant chairs in the middle of everything, right, with chair covers.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Anyway, so, but I kind of felt like I saw the writing on those, like, you know what, I probably am not so relevant here anymore. Let's maybe move along, you know. Before they fire me, I'm gonna like leave. Just because I can't do this anymore. I can't. It became like this big sort of committee thing, you know, like it was just too much of a committee, which is, I think, what he was going for. He was going to set that up. So I kind of saw that coming, and I went, maybe I'm out of here, you know. And I left, and I didn't have a job. And I just didn't get a job. I didn't try to get another job.
Look for a job.
You know, I had a friend, this woman called Sarah, and she and I I made clothes with her and sold them when I was in high school. We had this little company together. She was like a woman, and I was a child when we first met. And then by that point, I was a woman and she was a woman. So we decided to start a company, you know, and so we both had a little money. I got a loft on Green Street. Yeah. That was like $1,200 a month or something. Yeah. And I painted it, and I made the cutting tables, and I moved the sewing machines in.
So then from that, you kind of thought,
Yeah.
this can happen.
Well, no, I'll tell you what, we were in business for about a year. I was in business for like 6 months without any help. I just made everything and did everything, right? And then I hired someone. I was like, well, I better get serious about this because I just hired someone, right? And so the two of us, I love this woman, Annika Anderson. I forgot her married name, but anyway. So I hired Annika, and we bonded, and we just made these clothes. And then I said, guess what we're doing? We're going to have a show. That's the show you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. That is the show. Well, the other thing watching Unzipped is the moment when, I don't think I've ever asked you this, but the moment when you see Women's Wear Daily.
Yeah.
And it's just like we've all had that moment in our life and our careers. It's like, I want to disappear into the floor and kill myself. But
There's a really good GIF of it,
Yeah.
GIF of it. Have you seen it, like throwing
No.
the, it just keeps throwing the paper and throwing the paper.
But
It's
was
hilarious.
that I mean, Douglas came in and had that, before he filmed it.
I
did
didn't
you,
know.
You didn't
No,
know.
they set me up a lot. Nina and Douglas
God,
set
that's
me up
so
a lot. Yeah,
And-
they set
and-
me up
and
I had
so-
no idea that was happening. It was really, they got that.
So
It's
the,
like,
the great thing is, though, that after that happened, it's like when you read a book or you watch a movie and you think, our hero is done in. It's the end. It's over. And then the next scene is, no, life, it regenerates itself. You turn a corner a different way, and
and you go,
reinvent
guess
it.
what? Eskimos,
So-
Inuits, whatever you want to call them.
So
Yeah.
from that moment, you then went on to do one of the best shows you ever did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
I had
that's a
already
huge
done
lesson.
it. I mean, it was like minutes before I was going to show that
Right,
show.
right.
Yeah. Yes.
But so, I mean, and I think that's a recurring theme in your life in a way. Because when you were a kid and you were in school and you hated that school, and then you transferred to the
Yeah,
performing arts.
that's right.
You have always had the ability to be your own hero. You've had help, and that.
Yeah, I've had help.
But you've always had the ability to say, it's not working, I'm going on.
You know, I got to say something, which is that, like, it's a double-edged sword, right? Collaboration is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Some of the great people in my life, like Nina, who is here, Nina Santisi, she's here, right? She was a real, like, collaborator with me. I mean, we really kind of went through a lot together. And she, if it wasn't for her, like, I don't think I would have done a lot of what I did, you know? And then she would look at sketches and go, oh, that's nice, you know, and then 2 weeks later, she said, that is gorgeous. I'd say, well, you've seen, the sketch has been here the whole time. You know what I mean?
Right,
So it's
I
like,
do. Yeah,
yeah.
it's the greatest.
But you know what I mean,
Yeah, I
right?
do.
It's like collaboration is a double-edged sword. So you better like enjoy the process. You better sort of like, you can't really think about results too much. So
No.
when you say like this heroic thing, it's really not about heroics. It's about like sort of digging in and working hard and hoping you come up with something good
Well, I will say.
with the right people. You know, with the right people
yes.
around.
I
you know?
think my experience of going into fashion designers' showrooms is seeing, as I said, the coterie of people who are loyal, who really, really work hard, and who believe in the vision of the designer.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very moving. I mean, you know, when you see the Valentino movie and you see how people have stuck together, and you know, Armani has, I mean, people have very loyal followings. But I think that the heroic thing does apply for this reason. From the outside looking in, we see a person's journey and the fact that they're so courageous and so driven. Because an artist, I don't think, has a choice. You have to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't become a banker.
But
You
it
didn't,
doesn't
like-
feel heroic. It feels
No, of
normal,
course it doesn't.
You know?
No,
Yeah.
it feels like you're just living.
I was
but-
just at the Breuer, you know the Breuer?
Yeah.
And I was reading about, I forgot who, I think it was like one of the, like Cy Twombly, maybe? And it talked about how like courageous, and I thought, no. They think it's courageous. You know, if you're a curator, you think artists are courageous, but they're not. They're like on a spectrum. You know, I mean, like they're crazy is what they are.
Right.
And you, and it would be courageous
Right.
for them to become bankers. You know what I mean?
But they don't have a choice. They can't
It
become
would be courageous
bankers.
for like you to get a job at like a kiosk selling newspapers and cigarettes.
I actually couldn't. Okay.
Well, you see what I mean?
Can't change.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
I
saying,
couldn't
so
do
that
it.
would take a lot of courage for you to get out of bed and do
Yes,
that
you're
every
right,
day.
it would, actually.
Okay?
It's true. Yeah.
Actually, we should open a kiosk. That
Well,
would be
why
really
don't,
fun.
yeah, why don't we do that? that.
Yeah.
I have the place. But let me ask you this.
It's a whole other subject. That whole other thing
Once, did you ever equate, because you left the theater, there was the fork in the road,
Yeah.
did you ever look back and go, Because after you did go and do the cabaret show.
Yeah, I
Which
made a
was
show.
amazing.
I made a movie. I mean, I've
Yeah.
done a lot. I've been
Yeah.
on TV shows. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I'm at right now.
So is that calling you back?
Yes.
It's calling you back.
Yes, it is.
Can
It's
you tell
calling
us
me
more
back.
about?
You know, I mean, I'm
without-
just like every other person in the world with a production company. I have a production company. I have a fantastic person that I work with now who I love, who's running development with me, and we look at things together, and we, you know, have a lot of coffee and talk a lot and make a lot of calls and get rejected a lot. And our business is sort of growing. I'm very pleased and excited about
And
it.
you're writing a memoir.
That's right. I am writing a memoir.
Yes, you are.
I liked your pronunciation better. Memoir.
Memoir.
Yeah.
And so what is the hardest thing for you about writing?
Looking back in a constructive way and not a nostalgic way. Because speaking of Diana Vreeland, did anybody ever read DV, which is the greatest memoir in the world?
Yes, great.
The first 3 words are, I loathe nostalgia.
Yes.
And that's a really good way to start a memoir. And so, like, I have to remember that. I don't like to look back wistfully and fondly. It's good to look back constructively, though, you know? Just to tell a story as a writing exercise. As a writing exercise, this is a very good place for me
Right.
to work.
Right.
Because it's right there. It's just a matter of writing a lot, Wendy. You have to write a lot. I don't have to tell you, but you know, it just takes forever.
It's so hard.
It's so hard.
Because you're alone.
Because you're alone.
Yeah.
You're drinking, usually. Exactly. No, I mean it. I mean it.
I do too.
I didn't drink that much before I started writing my memoir. I drink so much now, and I think it's absolutely fine. I think whatever it takes, you know.
To get through it, absolutely. You have to.
You do.
Do you have, so you're not a nostalgic person, you're not looking back.
No. That was what was hard about this exhibit, was looking back without, in a non-nostalgic way, you know.
Just have a moment to celebrate this exhibit, which is one of the most amazing, wonderful, it is so beautiful. And it had to have been a joy for you to work on it. I mean, it's
Sometimes
really,
it was a joy.
Sometimes.
Yes, sometimes it was a joy.
But again,
Most of
really,
it,
really
yeah.
hard work.
Hard and boring, you know. But then it got really exciting. You know, everything starts with this kind of like drudgery. I can't get out of bed. How am I going to do this? And then you just make a start. And a lot of times it becomes this really kind of great thing. And that was what was good about this particular thing, was that it started like a lead weight. And by the end, it was like this fantastic feather, you know.
So gorgeous. What a gorgeous. Did you have I always agonize editing. Did you have one group of clothes that you thought, I really wanted in, but we just can't? Is there
course.
something we're not seeing that you...
Hundreds of things.
of
There was one thing I was actually considering making that was so good, but I couldn't find it. It was a black Barathea, a woolen jumpsuit with wide legs, and just had like a shirt collar. It was so good. But I figured, you know, it's just a black jumpsuit. But there was something about the lines of it that was superb. So, but I couldn't find it, you know. So.
When you look for inspiration, do you go back to a certain like designer or period in time, or a period of movies like
You know-
Adrian, or is there something that is a great pool for you of
I never look for inspiration. As a matter of fact, I try to dodge inspiration. I mean that. Because there's so much inspiration out there. You know, it's like every single thing suggests, you know. And so I'm seized, I'm like, you know, it's like it comes, oh, go away, leave me alone. It's like, you know, when your husband wants to have sex and you're like, oh, stop already, stop it, you know. Sometimes it's really good to like give in, you know. I mean it.
Well, that's interesting. You say that so pointedly to me. I mean, really, okay. But I think that if you are open to what is around you and the beauty that's around you, but not everybody can do that, and that again is the definition.
Yes, and like the silliest thing can suggest the most profound thing.
Do you have an example in the show that you can say, okay, one day I was walking down the street, I saw a lollipop, and that dress was born. Is there something
Yeah,
that
many, many things. One thing is this dress that is called rabbit ears and or slingshot dress, which fits, it
yes,
fits like
under-
that.
yeah.
And I was at a fitting one day with a ballet dancer who came in for one of her costume fittings, one of the first things I ever did for Twyla and Dick, well, just Twyla. And the girl literally shrugged her shoulders and all her clothes fell to the
Oh
ground.
my gosh! Oh my
Or at least
gosh.
I imagined it, right? She was so beautiful. And she just went like that and all her clothes just dropped like that. It was so dramatic. And I thought, now I have to make a dress, right?
Yeah.
And so a girl does that and the whole thing drops to the ground. It's like a slingshot or right?
Oh, that's
So great.
gorgeous.
So that's an example. The other example is one day I was at the Dia Beacon, and there
Yeah.
was this fantastic installation of, who am I thinking?
Donald Judd, Dan Flavin.
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 Yeah. And something about the light, the way because it's a bank of windows
Yeah.
and then a Dan Flavin under it. So it's the sickest thing in the world. And the color of the light versus the color of the perverted
Yeah.
kind of neon light.
Yeah.
It was so inspiring to me.
Yeah.
And I made that dress of all those different color
Oh
pinks.
God.
Yeah.
So when you also have done a lot for the ballet. What's the major? Seems like a dumb question, but when you're fitting dancers, what is the one thing that annoys you?
About dancers?
Well, I know nothing,
Well-
but I mean, what is the one thing that you go, oh
So
yeah?
many things, but
Okay, well, could you just give us a little bit of into that world that, the behind the scenes dancers I worship them. But to dress them, I know from other designers, it's very difficult sometimes to design costumes for them.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it depends on the dancer.
Yeah.
And I've had a very good time mostly. But I did work once or twice with dancers that just didn't want to hear about it. Like they just didn't want to do it, And it's heartbreaking because it's my idea, so you have to try. I don't want to force you, but you kind of have to do what I say for a minute.
Right.
And so I don't want to have to work that way, but sometimes, and then sometimes they're so disrespectful, like they just change things and don't do things. It's like, wait a minute, integrity, right? And then sometimes they're madly respectful, like Mikhail Baryshnikov. Like he actually, I made him a pair of trousers in like 1932 or something, and he still calls and goes, do you mind if I copy? Please copy the trousers. Are you kidding me? I'm so thrilled that you actually, to call that is
That's so
really
sweet.
incredible.
That's very,
yes, Misha
very
is a
considerate.
wonderful artist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you did The Women on Broadway,
Yeah.
was that a fun experience or was it a...
You know what? It was a great experience. It was super fun. And do you know what day it was when I was on my way to the meet and greet for that show? September 11th. Yeah.
Oh,
And of course
really?
it was canceled,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that was the time period in which we were making it. And so it was sort of living inside this theater. And it was fabulous because they were all dressed in like these kind of 30s clothes, and they were all kind of huddled around. I swear it was like World War II, seeing all these like fascinator hats and like snoods, and seriously, listening to like the reportage about the war. I mean, it was
Yes,
so fabulous.
Yeah.
And I swear, I feel like, I don't know if, Kristen Johnston will remember, or Cynthia Nixon, or, Jennifer Coolidge, or whatever. I don't know if those girls would remember what a bond we all felt together
bet.
in that theater.
I bet they do.
Yeah,
I bet they
because it
do.
was fabulous
Yeah.
to like play this comedy
Yes.
among all of
Yeah.
this insanity.
Yeah,
It was
of
like,
course.
some kind of crazy documentary about, like the power of the theater. Yeah.
Do you have lots of students coming up to you saying, tell me what to do, or tell me what I need to know? That's a hard one, but I think, do you have advice for them? What do you tell them when they say,
It's a general question. And people ask it a lot. And I never know the answer generally because I don't know people. I don't know what makes them kind of. But I always think that but there's nothing you can do to make yourself do things. Stop trying to make yourself do things. Oh, that's what I say. I say procrastinate. Put it off. That's always my best advice. Procrastination
Right.
is the best.
right?
Yeah, because the thing is, like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So you're not going to make it happen. You're just not. no amount of organization or, none of
Right.
that's going to matter.
Right.
If it's not there,
Right.
it's just not going to be there. She's looking at me with a kind of a mic.
Oh, okay, it's time for us to take
Oh,
questions.
good. I need to eat some more cookies. Oh, good. Hi.
His daughter. And
Who?
Luna Sutton.
Oh, my God,
And
Luna.
Isaac used to play bridge occasionally with my mother in her 90s. And she was always grateful to him. He was so kind to her and so caring and gentlemanly. So I want to thank you
Oh, that's sweet.
for those days when she was around and
She was great. She
spoke
was great.
fondly of you. Now, I want to ask you something. Coming from the same community as you, have you had any effect on any of the students from Yeshiva Flatbush? Have you heard from any of the kids growing up and either feeling a tendency towards art?
No.
No. How about
That's a one-
how about the
one-word
school?
answer.
Have you been honored by the school in any way?
No.
Well, let me tell you, I honor you.
Thank you. You're so kind. And her mother was an amazing, amazing figure in the community. She lived to like 102 or something. She was so old and still playing bridge every day. I mean, that's what bridge is. Bridge keeps you alive. Luna Sutton, one of my mother's friends.
Thank you for that lovely presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you for coming.
And I have a question, because I'm always debating this with myself and my short friends and my short family. and I have a theory that when short women get dressed, they can dress beautifully and they can look nice. And when they walk out the door and they see a tall woman wearing the same outfit, she's just not going to look as exciting in it because she doesn't have room for her clothes to hang.
Okay,
Do
you're
you
right.
agree?
I'm just kidding. You know what? I have no answer for that question because I am
Don't say that.
appalled.
No, that's not true.
No, I'm appalled by that. I mean, if you think of yourself that way, then I think, you know what? I was just talking about this today. Like, fashion is a lesson about how to look at yourself in the mirror differently all the time.
That's what my mother says all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's what you need to learn. You need to learn the way to look at yourself in the mirror. And I think that's a responsibility that designers never have. I think, usually they think, what mean, nasty thing can we do to this lady to make her buy something? Well, anyway, I mean, and I think that it's the opposite. I think, how can you appeal to a smarter side of a woman to make her like something?
And what works for whatever you have happening.
Exactly. And so I can't account for the way people see themselves. I mean, I always see myself as a fat, pimply kid, And so I'll never get over that. Never. And I dress accordingly. So, I mean, I empathize with you. I empathize with you, but like as a responsible designer, I think, I just have to keep telling women they're beautiful because the more you tell them they're beautiful, the more they might believe it. I swear. And if you believe it, then you will be beautiful. So, yeah, I'm sorry. What's your question? It's like, really? I'm going to burst out into a song in 5 minutes. But, huh? What? Oh, okay. Mike's.
Hi, Isaac. I was wondering, do you consider yourself a feminist because you love women so much?
I love some women a lot. I am reluctant to call myself a feminist because I don't really have a feminist agenda, I feel like I am an integrated feminist, I wake up. By the way, can I say something really simple, y'all? We need a woman in the fucking White House, period. I don't care if you like her or you don't like her or you're a transsexual or a homosexual or whatever the hell you are. We need a woman in the fucking White House, period. Simple, really easy. Okay, sorry. Where was I going? No, I'm not really a feminist. I'm reluctant to say that I'm a feminist. Because it's I like to think that it's integrated, do you know? Okay, that was my answer to that question.
Firstly, it's so entertaining, both of you, and it was just great. Anyway, I Googled you, even though I know who you are, and you got married 6 years ago, and
did.
I was watching the clip of you being interviewed by Wendy Williams.
Oh, Wendy,
And
right.
it was so cute because they
Another
were
Wendy,
married on
darling.
the
There's another
same
one in the world.
day.
Sorry.
So I was curious what you did the next year, because you said the next year we'll have a party.
Oh, you know,
And the second question is, do you have a working title for your book?
you know, I'm going to answer the second question first, which I think I Am is a very good name for a memoir, right? Like I Am, right? So there's that. But then as far as like getting married and having a party, you know, it's at the time that we did it, it seemed beside the point. The party seemed beside the point. It was just this idea. I don't honestly know why we got married, because we could, and I thought, you know, like how great that if you're in the hospital, somebody can come to the hospital or something, or you save like $5 on your insurance or something, right? So good for us. We're going to do this. We're going to try it, and so we did it because we could or something, you know? And then when I did it, it was a miracle. It really felt so great. I can't explain why it felt so great. And so we went to City Hall and we did that, and then we had this fantastic night. I will remember that night forever. We went to a place in Sag Harbor, which I've never been to before. I've been going there for 30 years. It's this little place. It's sort of like Lady and the Tramp. It's called Il Cappuccino. It has these little tablecloths. It's literally with like, you know, like wine bottles, basket wine bottles. It's ridiculous, okay? And we just had this dinner. We were looking at each other like, I remember that forever. And so now we do that every year. But I was thinking this year, 5-year anniversary, we might have like a party. Big party. I don't know where, I don't know how, I don't know what. And then I thought also, you know, the museum thing, and that's going to take a lot of, you know, my party energy away, right?
Oh, I doubt that.
No, you know what I mean, right? It's like, how many things can you invite people to in 1 year, right?
Lots.
Or in 4 years? A lot, right? Yeah, okay, all right. So maybe this year, you're all invited to my party.
Isaac.
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Chi.
Okay, so Russ and Daughters,
What about it? Well, speaking of cookies. and
question.
things- Yeah, all right.
cinnamon or chocolate babka? Need to know.
Chocolate babka, for sure. And I will say that I think we ordered babka erroneously. Like, I don't think it was on the menu, because they have at the Russ and Daughters Cafe. Okay, this is going to go on for a minute, okay? But they have babka French toast. So I think it's like stale, you know, you're supposed to use stale babka to make the French toast. So I think we were eating like stale babka. I'm just saying. Because, right? Am I right about that or what? I think it was like our little error forcing them to bring us babka that wasn't made into French toast.
Get a patent.
What?
We should get a patent on that.
Yeah, exactly. That was a good question. It was my favorite question.
Well, we actually went,
Who has a question now?
a question and a comment. We actually went and just had the stale babka. What they did is they put it in the microwave, so we thought it was.
No, I think now they have fresh babka. But the first days, they didn't have it on the menu, and we were just ordering it, and it
Still
wasn't
not on the
menu.
menu.
Oh, it's not?
But we ordered it. Anyway, they brought it, and it was delicious. But I think the fact that they put it in the microwave means that it's been
This is
stale.
what happens to old Jews. All they want to talk about, like I noticed my mother, who used to be a brilliant conversationalist, now all she talks about is like, you know, who makes better cottage cheese. And, you know, and seriously, and tuna fish salad. We're the best, you know, the best tuna fish salad. I'm serious.
All right,
Well,
I have
before-
someone back here.
Oh, is there a question?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Before we had the
Hi, Isaac.
babka, we went up to see the wonderful show. It was so wonderful.
Thank you.
And it was so feminine. And I was sort of thinking, the world is changing so today. You know, we have all the trans and we have all this stuff.
Yes.
Are you thinking of fashion becoming a little different? Because it's the most beautiful
Yeah.
fashion, but it's so feminine. I was sort of thinking, are you thinking differently about the world?
You know, I am so loath to comment on the current fashion scene because I feel like it's above and beyond. Speaking of my mother, this is a hilarious story. You know, for years she would come backstage after my show and go, "Darling, that was great, that was great." And then one year she came to me and she was like, "You left me in the dust." like that. And I was like, oh, so she basically felt responsible for all the collections that have come to this point. And now I left her in the dust. Finally I've eclipsed. But so it's what I'm trying to point out is that it's sort of like, it's stages. Like you look at things, you're obsessed with things, you stop looking at things. When I started my own company, I just had to stop looking at everything because it's too painful. It's just like that scene in Unzip where you see someone else doing that, and you go, no, it's best not to know. It's just to live in a fool's paradise, you just live in a fool's paradise. And so since then, I got in the habit of not looking. And I talked about that Balenciaga thing because I saw it. I told you, it's like someone tweeted it, and I went like that, and it started playing, and I watched it. And I liked it, like I really liked it. But if you ask me what I like, I don't know. I like Azzedine Alaya. I like, Rick Owens. They're like old people already, but they're great. Yeah. You know what I mean, right? It's not like cutting edge, fabulous new clothes, right? Yeah. But they're great. Yeah. And so I don't know what to say about how I think, I think it's all about social media now and the way, the way they work is really different because when we were kids, it was supposed to be a secret until the show happened, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's no secrets anymore. Like, Zach Posen drapes a sleeve and he tweets it out. Like, oh, this is what the sleeve looks like, And it's beautiful. Zach makes some nice sleeves, but what I was going to say is that when I was a kid, my friend Peter worked at Dior. This is even before, this was right after Mark Bohan and somebody had the job. And I went to meet him after work, and I was sitting across the street, and out come these models in what looked like graduation robes, and I was like, how fabulous. This is what they're doing. I love it. And they placed them, and they set up the lights in front of the house on Avenue Montaigne or wherever it was, and then, the robes came off to reveal the gowns and the suit, and the hat went on, and boom, they took the picture, and the robes went right back on, and they shuffled the girls inside because they didn't want, spies from the house of Saint Laurent or the house of whatever it was to see what they were doing. I mean, this to me is what it's all about, right? No, because if you're Zach Posen, you tweet if you do a last on a shoe and everybody will know. But that's because that's what's happening. I can't, it's like I don't understand,
Hi, Isaac.
But wait, can I finish that thought?
Yes,
There's
you
something
may.
incredible about it that I just don't get because I'm too old, right? I always say this. It's like, I don't want to sound like this bitter old thing, even though I am, right? But I don't want to sound like one because they know, those kids, Zach, et cetera, everyone younger than him, they know something that I so don't know. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it's about. So that's my answer to your question. That I don't know, right? But they know. Go on.
Are
Sorry.
we sure?
No.
Hi, Isaac. I have a question.
What's that?
I'm curious about something.
What's that?
We speak about having a woman in the White House.
Yes.
So, how would you update Hillary Clinton's pantsuits, and how would you dress her?
That's a good question. How would I update the way she looks? I don't know. Again, I made clothes for Mrs. Clinton on a few occasions. So my answer to that is she should call me and we'll have lunch and we'll talk. And we'll see. I mean, I would love it. I would
All right,
absolutely
maybe
love it.
we two
One
more.
more question.
Yeah.
What time is it? What time is it? Who's going to ask a question? Oh, it's 7:30. All right. One more, if you don't mind.
Hi, Isaac. First of all, I watch you every Monday night at 9 o'clock on QVC with Sean.
Yay!
It's my favorite show of the week.
Yay.
And I went to QVC this summer, and I took a picture when you had that little, your picture was on the wall when you first walked in, and there was some of your stuff in there. I bought
Yes.
a watch there, and my friend took a picture of me standing next to you like this.
That's nice. I love that
so
story.
I love to watch you there, and I wonder how you enjoy the relationship you have with QVC.
I love it because, it's very hard schedule-wise to it takes 2 hours to get there and 2 hours to get back. And ultimately, I feel that it's a really great way of, kind of talking, sort of showing why clothes are great, And there is, a lot about it, especially when people call in and you get to say, no, you look great, you'll look great, trust me, I mean, it's really what I'm all about. It's what I'm all about. I don't want to get too sweet. I don't want to get too saccharine and sweet, but that's really what it's about, I think. I mean it. And it allows you to do that on such a grand scale. Yeah. By the way, I'm not making inside-out ball gowns for QVC and, right? I'm just making pretty sweaters and that's it. So, yeah. Thank you.
So,
Oh, Sean. Yeah, exactly. It's a chemistry.
well, actually, Isaac has to leave now to go to
go to
QVC.
QVC, that's
So it's true. So
Yes.
thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.